Lasso, teningazo, tri zopiligo, sholokani sabje patrisha.
So, welcome to our class. We are on page 106 on the verse 28. 20. You should forget it.
Sabje. Patsu quarta chingroimba, sholokani sabdemba. Lasso, teni tanda ligchik pat zopili corre zopa ngazo zopa komtong quartela, nilma ngazo majang ngazo control Ramanda chat Jambatalian, Letan Yomung, Jean, me Pachevare, Zeni, Tenri Korchik, Soyondi, Tatila, Nazola Jean, Yora, Zenitanda, Tramta Jamba, Lixochi, on Retachuli Jamba, Lixogena, Shen, Te Pachamambo Chilios, Jite Copapotan, Data Paziat, Te Yorwas, Teshe on the T Korchigre.
So we're studying the chapter 6 on the perfection of patience, on how to meditate, how to cultivate patience. And in the previous class, we were discussing how people that harm us, they are controlled by conditions. They don't act out of their own choice. And in this section of the text, the author is discussing with other philosophical schools in ancient India that they think that yes, there is independence. There is a self that is independent, that can voluntarily choose to do things in a certain way, or they can also posit God as being someone that has independence.
Also, teni pantini marke panete mete tesistivando pacans, yerla tata yang kerpi, kaparin jerwa mai no zeundita, koso daftar patenji Dr. Tapariti, Chamombo Chichengore, Ramanda Yorwazi on the Dr. Pasawani Yonshimaris, Dr. Maki Pachika, Telam Jewel Chachim Pachita, Tenri Yungumaris, Jewel Leka Chachra, Dr. Tapina, the Unjeva Maris. Jayan Dr. Maimba, the Carzina, Takan Sansal Canton, the Canton, the Tes, Canton, Dr. Many, Pumbanton, the Yendraman Latini, Yerchandraman Janjavan, the Yoremunga. Karsa tapaina katina kanton tina kanton kitama katina yokwata pambanton kit katina pambanton ni de kwa tapaze at tendichila ze yoro at tendijemando asin jawa mombunto so dharma tapare te job de oser.
So they say here, these philosophical schools, they say if they are unproduced and non-existent, then whatever wish they have to produce, harm will also not exist. Since the self would permanently apprehend its objects, it follows that it will never cease to do so. So we do not accept a permanent self that exists without change. Being permanent means that it doesn't change. It's changeless, as some philosophical schools in India say so. And the argument that Shantideva gives is that if there is a self that is changeless, it cannot be impacted by anything. Nothing, no condition can influence this self. And so, for example, if we say that the self now is apprehending a pillar or a table, we can also say, then this, if it doesn't change, if it doesn't change according to conditions, causes and conditions, like everything else, then it should continuously apprehend a table. It should always look at a table, and because if the object changes, the subject must also change. So it's saying that the subject, the self, doesn't remain constant. It must also change when the object changes. So like a philosophical.
Yeah. Nachu get on me top as it at the country chego, the number you showed, Ketchikama top as the Junjima top as it. Also now you Junjima top as it, Pachina so Hako de Orpena, Bombanchina, Jokinity Jajana, Tinima, Chipachikan, Chimagantongo Martin, so Mortajash. You must you mort chasona, Taramot. Jingro at an asontongo, tell Moti Juntini Chendro, Jinchese Corre, tell Jinji Matapa, Tehakor, Ketchika Matapaziat and Chamota Teringas, and you might really pena Michin, and you might really catch really non Gengo Chan enjoyed the word Tangasu, low Mombo Chiganol, Gengo Chat, Hako, Remo, Ketchikanol, Gengo Chandro at Hako Mari. Tell Matapa, catching me Matapas in it and
the way that we understand impermanence in Buddhism, when we say something is impermanent, like the self, I am impermanent, There are two ways of understanding impermanence. One is regarding the continuum, if I'm pronouncing correctly. And this is easier for us to understand. We understand that things, they at one point in time, they do not exist anymore. For example, if we have a cup, we can look at the cup and we think the cup is existing, and if we break the cup, we think, oh, it doesn't exist anymore. It's impermanent. It doesn't remain. But then there's also another way of looking at impermanence in Buddhism, which is the momentary, that everything is momentary, okay. Everything is momentary. So it says that every single moment, there is no point in time that the thing is not disintegrating or changing. So it's always becoming something different. For example, our human body, even though we do not see it, impermanence means that every single moment you're becoming older and you're becoming something else.
sonza kutso dak takpa yinsa tandi jeng chani nri chik shegi yo na mishi mato tandani ma tandrik tata tani charte dakte stagna na khabjir chepa me parmon shtir na mashan tan chan na yan jirwa me pa chik yo ze ondi ta kutso tani nri chik la wo ser dak khoro takpa res tiga kengi topki njawa chinro dega yo res kar tani nri chik la wo na ta dakte khoro takpa yina namka na takpa res nga so namka takpa kelinde wora namkazi tindi tosa rosa mea tindi gichachi le jakore mata mo ton tin donjo tindi le jakore marta te sonza kengi wangi mare tapayina tindi jevel chawa sawani ni che mache ba chi chandro re ta kyesu tanjik te ko ba pa saman jevel chawa che de yo ro tapa cha de go ta tel namje chi namje te sonana mombo songore kars get tapayina jevel ya taktakati chobde chi mag 지금 제월란자 먼저 용시야 요 말이지. 당아서 체력 바게 시기거래 지치빠씩 바이는 제월 지빠씩 용한테 시기거래 진칸데 직담나.
유치.
진칸데 직담나 소놈다 진카 소놈당 사본당 진카도 소치빠 직답도나 건제베 양치빠씩 다 직바 마차한테 낀자면다 온게 낀마사나 차가요 말이 마도 kiến 상소는 제베 양치빠씩 용다 daktak바이는 제베 양치빠씩 용고와 단제베 관름체니 메오니 디식리 용고와 남제에서 나올 텐지 몸보 시행도 고상와
This is Rinpoche's. He asked if I understood. I told him that it was a bit long, his sentence, so I understood, but I might have forgotten. So verse 29 says, furthermore, if the self were permanent, it would clearly be devoid of action, just like space. So even if it met with other conditions, how could its unchanging nature be affected? So in Buddhism, we say that permanent phenomena, they cannot have any effect, just like space, for example. Because nothing can relate, nothing can connect to space. It cannot be impacted by anything because its nature is unchanging. And anytime there is a connection, there is something impacting something else, both necessarily need to change because they are impacted by it. Any kirang tama kare jabu de
jikin chikpa chikyan jebti chikpa chikyan yongwa ta yang jikye chikpa nan jebta so tinyam da ma tonga sun chik ting jawa chama par chinin jawan ro de yora bari rambachi gashi jili yongore gashi ngol yongora ta jikpa chikpa na ngoji shonro ya kares
you chikpa
nan je kwari ta so Jaja.
I could understand his point. But it's not a
Teni tilma shirachi jashane. Jepike yang ngobshan de jepa tene chajipcha. Ti jepan de jipchan rewa kira kanyo. Tate ashipan de chirita counter. Tapa in son son gistil tinin jawa ni tanto mares. Roa. Dotsudina. Ko dartan jiktil tapa inna. Ngalin samsan le kangi nyonga tan samsan le deki nyonga tan yongwa kares. Wo cholo ko jiking to kingal tan yongre tapa in sonsa jiking jawa tan choni mea chandro ri sonsa nga mata pa dazayat mata pa jakore tapa in kingi jawa tsawani ni tan yo mar su te shede.
So verse 30 is a similar idea. Even if when acted upon by other conditions it remains as before, then what could actions do to it? Thus, if I say that this condition acts upon a permanent self, how could the two ever be causally related? So it's also about how a permanent thing cannot be related to other conditions. For example, if we had a permanent self, an unchanging self, then we couldn't say that something is making us happy or something is making us sad. Now I'm happy or now I'm sad. Because if we are unchanging, we cannot change, as these philosophical schools say, then it doesn't matter what conditions are in front of us, we would still remain unchanged. So this is what it's saying here. Yeah.
That's the time that you want to want to want me. The Starshina Chirba just Cheltavis, Mupokan La Troman Jersey on the tat, the Nikongi, the Kazang and so George Jachin Leongore, Aso Chik, Mijan, Michigan, Napoche, the at Colerawa Yomaris, Conyomo Jawan Rotaris. When Yomugajawan on in Dochata control us of Pijawans on the Colo Wancha Tavani Yomaris, teach Natela Wancha Yomaris. Something at so this Saulotanita, this Turbata Gemata, which Munchen Chintoana, Saulotanita, any Samal country chairman, the Sembalo Cheshos, Zoot indicate the Kazahako Coris, so control Makivi, Tamla Garina, Sound Caricinitan and Rich, so control Lana Makikit Matsohako, on the control Makivi.
So verse 31 goes back to the what we discussed in the previous class. It says, hence everything is governed by other factors, which in turn are governed by others. And in this way, nothing governs itself. Having understood this, I should not become angry with phenomena that are like apparitions. So as we were saying in the previous class, these are ways to think that are beneficial for us if we want to experience less anger, and we know how much anger can be uncomfortable for us. So these verses, they are about finding ways of thinking that can dissolve our anger. So here the way of thinking that he's proposing is by realizing that the people that behave in ways that harm us or that makes us angry, they don't have the independence to behave any way they want to. They are also under the control of anger, attachment, ignorance, and many other things. And even these things, they are also governed by other conditions. It's a web of conditions creating this event. So that's why, because this phenomena or this person, we can say, has no independent behavior, so to speak, without it's being controlled by other conditions, we can say that it's like an illusion or like a mirage. Yeah. So then we're not angry at it.
Tatani di con le Germanange ni ja chose o di Germanange re la on di quand je dors perte doper je pas menshina telarte ni dingarna jinchen yerndo mergmez tita Germanange na ngaso dewa jawya dingar setup kata chuganyam le che ta taso che kwa mando dingar dowi che te kange mombo che jaw kwa mando ko Germanange rendo Germanange na Maso teacher the Kang is a Jamal Hakundo. Oh, take a little Jago Mundoazina. Take a little Jago race, Jamanangere, Tenjego wanging us, Dinger Yon de Indoas, Dinger Yon go Yon de Anato Yon de Sonsa, Dinger Tejevice, the Kali Javal Mundria Chicayo Mare, somebody.
But we can argue, someone can argue, well, if everything is like a apparition, like an illusion, a mirage, because it's governed by other conditions and has no independent existence, then why should I not be angry if my anger is an illusion, or if this object, this person is an illusion, if I am an illusion, then why should I do anything? And the answer the book gives is that even though it is like an illusion, still you experience suffering when these conditions come together. There is the appearance of suffering, and because we don't want suffering, then it's your choice. You either see a point to make some effort not to experience this, anger or this suffering.
Devi Adam Zayang Murje Pantonkerna, then just Kelly Kertoji, Tester Somte, Dever non Zetitanazo, Kinsonal Mombon Tangorin, Dengi Jari something al Makipas, and Dingim Chopore something allergic Capondra, that Chabani Sheongor, that Jala control Daniela Chapakia, Tenji Rita Leondi, Tenji Mandachi Leondi, then just Kelly Kertoji Zetita, Shatako, Pashoko Tsenari, Nipa Genari Tama. Pasho kondo chata control wangi ngale tsamno pakiwa ngendo cha control pa tsama kiwate ngaso tsama le rawo mendu samba ngaso sem tani tenji chena kasa kinyi ngaso peja nyomba chikichi oni ngaso rara so chonro rela tele tsikpa yang za mari te no jima tsama control tando chata so jawan de kerondi ta nyomba de chikpa chikyan sem gna sa yo sa tenji yesonsa ti kapsa ta dandi kable so pano pachiat ma pasho ko so tenji no pachiandi ani shatsa ko Sem to be wangere, samnite so sem the lolo genital yamachini de somebody.
So because we are under the control of this web of conditions, such as anger, attachment, etc., both to the people that harm us, if we think in this way, that they are also being influenced by so many factors, so many things that are causing this action to arise, not only their independent choice, but also if we feel self-hatred, for example, we can also think that we are also being influenced by so many things that makes us act in an improper way. This can also help with self-hatred and help with hatred towards others. And also it could also help for attachment to people close to us, if it's necessary if you want to bring this attachment down also. And thinking in this way, just like when we meet someone that has a mental imbalance and this person cannot really control their behavior, it doesn't make so much sense to become angry at this person. We usually just take some distance and we just go our own way, but we know that there is something wrong in the person's brain. The person is going through a sickness, and in the same way, when we are these emotions that come to us, anger, attachment, etc., they also makes us go a bit crazy. So we can also think in a similar way.
Las kate ranger chapcherna gayang dingar mandola luchan tagna tamcha kya salang dingar jong manjer ziti ngoni toni kata ngoni ngaso la wancha gacha gandre chi ando chata konjo ta nyomo la so pinga so wanjer chepa main ba so wancha chi yona ta ngaso chi chi dingar kyoni chesa mares karzi ta tsama deki yona ganke ta dingar ma yona ganke chikpa yin so ta chi chi la no che mares ina ta no che de ta nyomo ngaso sem chini tini no che nguyores etishi.
And if you would say that no, I do have a choice, people do have a choice, they are not controlled by their emotions, they're not controlled by all these conditions, then we would have to say, if people are free to choose however they want to act, then no one in the world should suffer, no one should experience anything bad, because no one wants to suffer, no one wants to experience anything bad. So a sign that people are suffering beyond their control, that they are acting beyond their control, is the fact that so many people are suffering.
Las tandani nyomong ngasola rawa me pache on tonda oto pe mombo chi jando pe depondo shu pa me pin dalanda serma la so no chepa pe me la so top chicher ngab jan zircho la so chetan ote tete janer tangaso nyomong jawan de kerson de ngar so rawa tsawani ni yo maris pena ngaso so le control dans nyomo te so kata kinyiri kagla so no pache nyori la so te so tsipan raza te so tserma sha ta so ngol doshi gan ramda de chache ayores anin docha kawanda so nga so garon rawo tenji wangi pasho te topi cheta so kalamazani diponyoni de an rawo ta so le dipotan tenji haja mombo to te nyomon de top che soni wangir che ngore ma to so le sa machini sakan yo marita nyomo go wanda sondi so le na dipotan yung do as.
For example, there is no person that doesn't have a love towards oneself. Love in the sense that everyone wants oneself to be happy, not to experience suffering in this sense. But even though we want this self, this person, I, not to experience any pain, any suffering, because we are under the control of all these conditions, for example, we can get the self-hatred, we can experience the self-hatred and hit our hands in the wall, we can hit our own heads, we can also hurt ourselves in many different ways, cause ourselves suffering, even though we don't want to suffer. And also in the text it says, for example, when we're very attached to someone, very attached to a person, we also can inflict all sorts of harm towards oneself, such as going without eating, etc., because we are experiencing this flame of attachment so strong that causes us to engage in harmful behaviors towards oneself, even though we have this very strong feeling of I don't want to suffer, I want to be happy, this love for oneself.
아니 다때야 ndso ya chikpari kaching ga cha yang san cho tik tong man tro za ba yu son ma yu kyo pa ye ran la no pa che pa yu ze on dita kashi ke so ke ga ni ran shi ga ndo as kashi yang len chong ze ti tan kam ba ta cha ta so len chong ni ran so ji kashi ting tong kashi za ma de kya za ta ni chin so se ni chen de li so cho la ta ma ze se chima lo son ma yu bi li za ni ran la no pa cha chimbo chi che de ndo as te che de ata nga tsu nyomu nga tsu wangir che yongwi kapsa nga tsu le jansi me pita ta sabo chi tengi yore se sonza nyomu da ta tsu nga tsu kate chana deki yongwa ta nyomu wanda ta na kati na nga tsu kangin che ata sabo resi.
Even though we do not want to suffer, in the text he gives more examples of how a person makes oneself suffer, such as jumping from a cliff. It says here, like in many different ways, even committing suicide and eating poison, etc., and also not only making us suffer in this life, but also committing acts that, according to Buddhism, lead to suffering in future lives also. And this is a clear sign that we get under the control of afflictions, that we lose or we don't have this independence of choice, of choosing to act in whatever way we want to.
Reso. Tadi kaza kenye rika la toa chi te son so sena dikpa yori yo mari se. Tande dikpa yo wata sabo sa chanshe son so ran she gya wata te so la so pani chini son ma imba chimbo sakari zindo. Dikpa yo wata te sabo risha.
And Rika in the previous class she asked if self-harm would constitute a non-meritorious action in Buddhism, and here it's clear that it is. It says here that these actions are considered non-virtue.
Kansi nyomo wankirwi dagdig nye kyakso che pa te se te tag jalula onomel che partage mu ziti tanga so nyomo ngor do chata control aso pe jawan ta chi kersondi so tama jibi soya che jakando was te che son sata te nyomo ga jawan son jambala ya no che wa ta she magwari no gyache grace.
So if we see that through the power of these negative emotions, these very powerful, disturbing emotions such as attachment and anger, people even harm themselves, the person that they want the least to suffer. If they even harm themselves, and what can we say about them eventually harming someone else when they are under the control of these afflictions? Yeah.
As tandi karshe de gorezina matso nyomo zeate le kyonshe gore nyomo zeate ngatso wangir cheni deni matse kipo meche chega te nyomo resi tsendel kipo chema chega reta kiwa nga chikele na chamale kange so te yin sonza nyomo le kyonden ri yo sonza ngatso nyomo le kate cha gore ezine su te she gore sonza pa sho tse china konra chewi kaps pa sho nyomo wan sonza so control zamachu ani chi nabji nando chala so pate so kaze panto to chi mitse chi le shira chi gwayo mar samni semba rolo che gwa te ke chembori su te shede gore mitse ki thon.
The importance of this is for us to realize that these disturbing emotions are the real enemy, so to say. These are what makes us suffer. So it's important to have our priorities straight, that we need to, if we want to be happy, this is where our attention should be, about these disturbing emotions or afflictions such as anger, attachment, etc. Many of them.
Tani nyomos kiwati tawi dakso laso jikpalash nyaje gyala marti na chorin jirwa chorin jirwa chatatsi sitinta teze wata tani chi ngatso samlo jibcha chitani ta shenla samlo yakpo chitana pasho tatso majan zewarta majan tatso nyomongo ta soso ya chikpatarit nyomongo wanda kirsondi soso ya seja kandwas Tandri shatsa mochi rindu doas, nga zo semga na tsayo wata nyomba ta chikpa rindu doas. Tela ninji chikye mato nayang jiga rezi, yana kontro chayata ngoni chena chayaman doas.
So if we understand this situation that people are in, and people we can talk about others, but also ourselves. If we know that we are in this situation, we can have compassion towards ourselves. If we see that people, they get under the influence of these disturbing emotions, without control, and they even commit acts of self-harm, it's appropriate to have compassion for them. In the same way also for ourselves. And if we cannot have compassion, at least it doesn't make so much sense to become angry at these people that are going through this suffering. Tela chupa marite serpi range me konra zedita de tangatsu tandri nyomongo wande kersoni mitso pu nangeres ko so che goya te karinda che mo goya te kari hako marzindi kabza che go mo go te nyomongo wande makerwata tandri kacha derwa Engelson quand tu dis beaucoup de chine
pu sinazen chaltre pu nangeres ta ngatsu Kovi sem chanta so karzi te pu so che goya ta kan inda che mo goya ta kan im ko nin jogrwa te pu na jere se te la so tang mi chembo te so la worita nyomo go wande keni pu na jere te la so pa cha shi gore ma to kontro za yo mares pena men rawo pa zab che gore kontro malani zab che ngaro so yakpochini deto gore ma to te la tsipazandro pa nyokta che sona pena mele la panchang so ata chi pares Mel lakpan chanson lakpa tsikireta, mel tsikbaza yo mara, sozo zavza che machine mel lakpan chanra roa.
Control di no
pena
di control di rancina di.
Put son ko mi ranger yi son ta pa shon ni tsen semba ma ke wa tan no pan ro ndra mndra che diat ko so ranger mi ro mi ranger cha de ores. Tan do cha je da control la so pe mil no pa che diat Roa mi range chade ores. Range chade ores ngaru soza che gores. Pena meg sayat meg range chade ores. Tel lakpan chandro ayo ma soza che gores. Tini chik pashe.
If we, from another perspective, if we think that that it's in the nature of people to be harmful, to be mean and to hurt us, then even then, if we think this is their nature. Like here it says, like children, like childish beings that do whatever, not whatever they want, but that it's not very mature, very well developed. If we think that's their nature, it makes sense for us not to take distance, but not to become angry at something's nature. For example, if we get close to fire, if we put our hand on fire, we are going to get burned because it's the nature of the fire to be hot. So if we think that's the nature of people to be hurtful, it's up to us to take distance from this, to protect ourselves, but not to harbor anger towards the nature of things.
One question the lower la semcha ramjente Panans, one te cho meriti, kala tant copa janzititante, tanto copa tankal. Carsate, partial simple kin drum dredging training nikabla nga so control launch in the anzo gum cheto go ndo azita di konsan chok den jan de pena na gemi shikandro ya poshu selina ya poche tin tin yamashi ke around chitone araka zeni ta milchi na pondro chete china kanga onam jeta ko ya poyer ta tirita araka zari kam ndo azin nga so zo gum cheto ndo az de nanjian nikab ko pasho gon jewa chini nga so na poche na ya nga so taran zo gum cheto go re ya tin ndo chirisha ta jeton de kingerwa.
And if we think that's not in the nature of people to be harmful, then the example the text gives is just like being it would be like being angry at space for having smoke in it. So as an example that His Holiness the Dalai Lama gives in the Tibetan commentary here that Geshe is using is. For example, sometimes in our lives there are people that they're very, very good character. We know that it's a very good person, but let's say this person gets drunk one day. That's the example he uses. It's easier for us not to be very angry with this person because we know this person is very good, but now the person drank a lot and maybe did something improper. So yeah, in a similar way.
Solo catching Jara. You palaso move what the curtain, Pemba la tronate, Angers donkey baby, Nina Gerdan la troje, the ontitante, then he passes of Chandra watching his outlet on his shame where Pena Michigan as on Goli Jupa, Shushuna, as a metal Pazag was Zagre, Zupazagra, Mila Zupazan. The Mila Zupamas and a Jupa, the Zupacarachini Mazayens. Killing Jagger, Jupal, Zupachas, a Jupashing in Matarawa, Melitzupas, a Jupal, Zupazayo Maras. And in Matayan, Yomungo on the Sonish, Jupashung, Gorista, woman, Yomotics on Sons, I could Zupaza goes on it to control Ranja Ganga, control me palatashi, Goremato, Militsupazania, Pentacomar, Jupa, Resin.
And if we analyze a bit deeper, for example, when we have a stick, when someone takes a stick and hits us in the head, we are angry at the person, right? But why aren't, what he says here, why aren't we angry at the stick? Because the stick is the one that caused pain in your head, if we analyze like this. But no one would be angry at the stick because it's very clear that the stick has no choice but to harm you because it's being controlled by this person that's hitting you in the head. So in a similar way, he says that people they're also under the control of disturbing emotions, of afflictions. So if we are to be angry at something, then it makes more sense to be angry at the person's anger itself, at these conditions that are controlling the person, than being angry at the person that is like the stick.
Nagin docha control ngartia tratola so pasena la so but so ngarucho metse kipo zo ameat jipchachi saulo tangore ngoni chicheti control on ka te kan trogundu ndo pachina ka te control tangden chato tangaria ta so nyocha mombo chizo ndo ta so me pa zo goya chi hako sona ka chanda so lo troachi yore kesi ta so ta chi so so gen chanda wo chi ta michin ro amil gora sanani ki chanda so lo chuyo mari.
These words, they have a better taste when we understand, if we understand that these disturbing emotions we have, for example, strong attachment and desire, and we know the how much it can hurt us to behave like this, or when we have very strong anger, if we know that this is the negative side of this, or arrogance, or envy, jealousy or envy, etc. These disturbing emotions. If we know that this is not a positive direction to take, then it has a better taste. These words. Some people they might see their emotions or these qualities of themselves as something like an ornament, something good to behave like this, and then it makes less sense. To think in these ways.
Try you. Then you
So I think we leave here, but we can ask questions maybe if you want, or if you want to say something.
Yeah, thank you so much. I know it's a lot to do for me sitting here, but I think you're also recording. Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to express how blessed I feel to be here. I was looking to develop bodhicitta more, and I got the recommendation from another book to read Shantideva's book.
Okay.
And I went to the library and I looked at it and I thought I would need instruction for this book. So I got a more simple book. And then here I am having some instruction on this book. So it's really nice.
Kong Jongsem la kantas ge kore ge Jongsem ge zula donong Jongsam kong. Deni kong mashipajik dipdi. Junchuk chemo kong la sondi Jongsem la donong yana di lona ya pere. Ini ang kompensa kong la jone ani tebi tane ani chunam hakut tugimen chan zimjala jokore. Ini kong tebi shimpajik nyore. Nta kong shine kore. Zinja. Inchikiri dene da kong hakut tub giri dene tichichi.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And also so in Buddhism, and to develop this, there's the common practice of seeing everyone as your mother for lifetimes, which is so difficult for me because I do not talk to my mother, and there's a difficult relationship there. So it's been really, so I guess step one is really dealing with this very large thing, and in this reading it's very, it's touching my heart because my mother had a very hard life. She had a very hard life, and that is why she acts the way she acts. So it was really helpful for me to hear this right now. Yeah.
Dene kong den Jongsem ge cha yonanam yung ko so nga susim chin tom jela manashing atogi manashing tagore ra ne kong la di kale yore kensna kong gi mitsedin na la kong gi mala ganga chembo yore yang konto gi jawa yapomindo konto yang chembo yore dene kong dene peche nga dampo nga di netang di kari yapos chegare kong netang di tagore dene liu dukpadi kong la tering yang kong la pepento jungsong kensna kong gi ma yang kong gi mitsena la ganga mushipu jungsong yang dene kong gi ma gengi wongi control langue kimtsenda tsakla spento jungsong.
Te da chigre teni ketoni nga so semcha tancha ma zedea nga so gyacha chigitsina mi mombo chile so ma te tsewa yorwa o te pe gyagore te yina yang yinching menching mala ma gya na semcha tan ma so tsewa yosho so tsewa chesho chingna je semcha la tato na ten jige yore yinching menching ma nge ma tan ji chinyendu mashi ma go ni pashi gom na men jiga chika pata sawa chimbo isa te na jin chiksen te na je ta na jige yore te jamba nyen ro so pu na jin zeto na ten jige yore te
Yes, very good. Also in Buddhism, there is this advice of seeing every sentient being, every person as your mother. But this is only an example that they use, because in general, the person that people feel most connected to or they experience most love is their mother. But this is not a rule. You can see everyone as your father, if there is a better connection, or you can see as your son, your children, or any. The point is someone that you feel this, the person you love the most, and you train to see other people in a similar way.
That's very helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, yes, thank you.
Thank you.